Welcome back to Behind Mask. There is a bond considered sacred, inviolable, the love of a mother for her child. But what happens when that bond is not just broken, but annihilated by a force from within the mother herself? A force so powerful, so terrifying, it wears the mask of sanity and then unleashes hell. July 2009. San Antonio, Texas. A young mother, Otty Sanchez, commits an act so horrific against her 3.5-week-old son, Scott, it defies comprehension. Her explanation? The devil told her to do it. She claimed she was hearing voices, fighting an evil she could not control. Was this the mask of a cold-blooded killer? Or the terrifying genuine reality of a mind fractured by severe mental illness? Postpartum psychosis, schizophrenia, a woman who had become a victim of her own brain. Tonight, we venture into one of the darkest territories of the human condition, to unmask the tragic case of Otty Sanchez. Otty Sanchez was 33 years old when she gave birth to her son, Scott Wesley Buchholz-Sanchez, in early July 2009. For any new mother, this period is one of immense change, joy, and challenge. For Otty, who reportedly had a pre-existing history of psychiatric issues, including schizophrenia, the weeks following childbirth would prove catastrophic. Little Scott was just over 3 weeks old. His father, also named Scott Buchholz, was part of his life, though reports suggest Otty may have initially hidden the pregnancy from him, and their relationship was perhaps complex. What should have been a time of bonding and new beginnings was, for Otty, a descent into a terrifying internal abyss. The mask of a new mother, often expected to be joyous and fulfilled, can sometimes hide profound struggles. In Otty's case, it seems this mask was being ripped apart by the onslaught of severe postpartum psychosis, likely merged with her underlying schizophrenia. Sunday, July 26, 2009. The details of what transpired inside Otty Sanchez's San Antonio home are almost too horrific to recount, and we will not dwell on the graphic specifics of the violence against baby Scott. What is known, through official reports and court records, paints a picture of a complete psychotic breakdown. Otty Sanchez, in a state of profound psychosis, killed her infant son. How the methods reported were exceptionally brutal, involving dismemberment with knives and a sword. When her mother and sister arrived at the home, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. They found Otty Sanchez screaming, covered in blood, with self-inflicted stab wounds to her chest and slashed wrists. Baby Scott was dead, his body horrifically mutilated. Otty's words to her family, and later to police, were chillingly consistent with her psychotic state. She claimed the devil had been speaking to her for days, telling her to kill her son. She said she had to do it to prevent an apocalypse, or because he was the Antichrist. She reportedly even ate parts of his brain. This was not a crime of malice as we typically understand it. This was a woman utterly consumed by a terrifying, delusional reality, her mind a battleground where the mask of sanity had been obliterated by severe mental illness. Police described her as catatonic, then hysterical. Otty Sanchez was arrested and charged with capital murder. Given the horrific nature of the crime, the public outcry was immense. But the legal question quickly shifted from, did she do it, which was tragically clear, to was she criminally responsible for her actions? Her defense attorneys immediately signaled their intent to pursue an insanity defense. In Texas, as in many jurisdictions, this means arguing that, due to a severe mental disease or defect, the defendant did not understand that their conduct was wrong at the time of the offense. Multiple psychiatrists evaluated Otty Sanchez. They reportedly diagnosed her with schizophrenia and confirmed she was suffering from severe postpartum psychosis at the time she killed her son. This meant she was likely experiencing profound delusions, hallucinations, and a complete break from reality. Based on this overwhelming psychiatric consensus, both the prosecution and the defense agreed that Otty Sanchez met the legal standard for insanity. In July 2010, in a bench trial before Judge Raymond Angelini, Otty Sanchez was found not guilty by reason of insanity for the capital murder of her son. This verdict did not mean she walked free. Instead, she was committed to a maximum security state psychiatric hospital in Vernon, Texas, for treatment. Under Texas law, she could potentially spend the rest of her life there, with her case subject to periodic review by the court to assess her mental condition and whether she remains a danger to herself or others. The Otty Sanchez case is a harrowing look behind the terrifying mask of severe mental illness, specifically postpartum psychosis compounded by schizophrenia. Postpartum psychosis. This is a rare but severe mental illness that can affect women after childbirth. Symptoms include delusions, hallucinations, paranoia, hyperactivity, and rapid mood swings. It is a psychiatric emergency requiring immediate intervention. Otty's claims about the devil and hearing voices are tragically consistent with the delusional thinking in severe psychosis. The devil was not an external entity, but a horrific manifestation of her diseased mind. Schizophrenia. Her pre-existing schizophrenia likely made her more vulnerable to developing postpartum psychosis, creating a perfect storm for a catastrophic break from reality. The mask of motherhood versus the crisis within. Society often expects new mothers to be filled with joy. This societal mask can make it incredibly difficult for women experiencing severe postpartum mental illness to seek help, or for those around them to recognize the signs until it's too late. The stigma is immense. NGRI, justice or medical necessity. The not guilty by reason of insanity verdict often sparks public debate, but it reflects a legal principle that individuals who, due to severe mental defect, cannot comprehend the wrongfulness of their actions, should not be held criminally culpable in the same way as someone who acts with lucid, malicious intent. The focus shifts from punishment to psychiatric treatment and ensuring public safety through secure confinement. For Otty Sanchez, this means intensive treatment for the illnesses that wore the mask of her sanity. We must also acknowledge the unimaginable grief of Scott Buchholz, the baby's father, and Otty's own family, who discovered the horrific scene and are also victims of this tragedy spawned by mental illness. As of May 2025, nearly 15 years after she was committed, Otty Sanchez is understood to remain confined in a Texas state psychiatric hospital. Life for individuals found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed is one of ongoing treatment and regular psychiatric evaluation. The court periodically reviews her case to determine if she still meets the criteria for involuntary commitment, essentially, whether she remains a danger to herself or others due to her mental illness. Release from such a commitment, especially after a crime of this severity, is exceedingly rare and would only occur if she were deemed to be fully recovered and no longer a threat, a very high bar to meet. There have been no public reports of significant changes in her status or any impending release. For all intents and purposes, Otty Sanchez continues to live behind the mask of her illness, within the secure confines of an institution, grappling with the consequences of actions taken when her mind was not her own. Her story stands as one of the most extreme examples of what can happen when severe maternal mental health crises go unrecognized or untreated until they reach a point of no return. The case of Otty Sanchez and the death of her infant son, Scott Wesley Buchholz-Sanchez, is a profound tragedy born from the depths of severe mental illness. It is a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about psychosis, the vulnerabilities of new mothers, and the societal need for greater awareness and resources for maternal mental health. The devil Otty Sanchez spoke of was not a supernatural entity, but the horrific mask worn by her own fractured mind, a Mind ravaged by postpartum psychosis and schizophrenia, the legal system, through the not guilty by reason of insanity verdict, acknowledged this tragic reality. This case, in all its horror, unmasks the urgent need to support new mothers, to recognize the signs of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, including the rare but critical danger of postpartum psychosis, and to ensure that help is available before minds and lives are shattered. We remember Scott Wesley Buchholz-Sanchez, a life that had barely begun. What you have just heard is beyond comprehension for most. A mother claiming the devil made her destroy her own child. But the real devil here, folks, was a disease that wore the mask of Otty Sanchez. If this story does anything, let it be a scream for awareness, for help, for understanding, that the mind can be a terrifying place, and sometimes people need to be saved from themselves, and those around them need protection. Please, if you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, especially a new mother, reach out. Resources are in the description. For more stories that look behind the masks of tragedy, subscribe to Behind Mask.